Hello, and welcome to Come to Think of It. My name is Steve Nemirovsky, and I'm your host. We recently did a show with Tom Welly of Fire Preparedness Services, in which we took more of a 10,000-foot approach to issues related to wildfires. Among other things, we discussed actions being taken statewide and nationally to mitigate wildfire risk, and we addressed priority items for individual homeowners. Most importantly, we spent time on the 5-foot, the 30-foot, the 100-foot risk areas for maximizing home protection. At the end of the day, and you're going to hear it again today, it's still the individual homeowner that's the number one line of defense here. You can find our interview with Tom on the GrassRoots Community Network website and on the YouTube channel. In today's channel, we're going to again look at wildfire mitigation, but from a local perspective in the Roaring Fork Valley. We're going to also look at issues related to responding to an active fire and, most importantly, evacuation. Our guests today are Parker Lathrop and Chris Breitbach from the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office. Parker, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, I'm going to start the show and hopefully remember to end the show with just thanking you guys for everything you do. I think the community here, feels safe with you guys on the watch, and I feel like we've got the A-team here today.
Thank you. Very privileged to be here, so thank you.
Now, my guests are already thinking I'm doing a bait and switch because I'm talking wildfire, but I'm bringing in the sheriff's guys. So why are the sheriff's guys here today?
So under Colorado state law, the sheriff is statutorily responsible for wildfire within the county. There is some pass-throughs that there's some municipalities have some responsibilities. Fire districts also have their responsibilities. But in the end, when it comes to wildfire in the county, the sheriff holds the responsibility. Maybe not to fight the fire themselves, but they do own, they have the piece to make sure that it happens, and then from there they can pass that responsibility onto the state or onto the federal level as well.
But you've also been with the fire department.
Correct, yeah. So I was in the fire side for about 18 years. I did 8 years as deputy fire chief with Aspen Fire.
Awesome. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but what's your sense of our overall preparedness here in, and is it only in Aspen, or are we talking the whole Roaring Fork Valley? Whatever answer you want to give, what's your overall sense of where we're prepared, particularly in 2025, maybe compared to some other years?
I would say preparedness, first, before we talk about preparedness, let's look at risk. We live on that boundary between the forest and the urban area. We have a lot of homes, a lot of properties that are in kind of even more into the forest side of things. So we, more than a metropolitan area, have that risk. In terms of preparedness, how do you prepare for that risk? It kind of runs the gambit. We have some more modern construction. There's a lot of fire thought put into the fire risk or the wildfire risk when development happens, or even when the homeowner, when they look at their house, like, what can I do to make my house better? So we have people who prepared for it. That helps us in the long run in the event of a fire. All the work someone does ahead of time helps the response side huge. But then we also have some people who want to live in the forest. Like, that's why they moved to the mountains. That's why they have their house where they did. And so that creates another challenge. So they're not as prepared. They may understand the risk, but they're not prepared. And in the same, if they're not prepared, we're not prepared to go and maybe help that individual, especially not the firefighters. It's hard when there's so many homes and there's so few engines and firefighters to go put out a fire. If you have a large wildfire, you have to prioritize your resources. And so the preparedness that an individual takes ahead of time helps during the actual event later.
I'll just build off of that. From the people perspective, myself being new to the Valley, there's been a lot of people asking questions, which is fantastic. They're identified that the risk is there. They want to learn ways that they can prepare themselves. I do a lot of public speaking to the local caucuses, and the biggest message that I can get to the people as part of their preparedness is to have a plan yourself, and we can probably talk about that a little bit later. Have an evacuation kit yourself so that if you do need to evacuate, you're prepared and you have some things already gathered. And then having connection to the communication resources to be able to alert you. Pitkin Alert is a very common tool that's used in the Valley. A partner to Pitkin Alert is ReachWell, that pushes out the same information that Pitkin Alert puts out, but it also can change it into about 135 different languages. So people that are having a hard time understanding English, they can still receive that information, that same information through ReachWell. And then the last plug I'll put in there is the pitkinemergency.com webpage. is something that I strongly advise people go to, not only for wildfire, but for any sort of emergency situation. We can talk a little bit more about the evacuation in a few minutes, but that is one place where you can go and get quite a bit of up-to-the-minute information. It's working with our communications folks within the sheriff's office and the county, and also with our 911 center that will be able to update that information.
Okay, so maybe stop there, and I don't know if you have this with you, but okay, if I want to sign up for Pitkin Alert, how do I do that?
Go to the Pitkin County Emergency Management webpage, the Pitkin County webpage, the Pitkin 911 Center webpage. All three of them will have hyperlinks that will guide you through the process of how to register. And once you get registered for Pitkin Alert, it's not only for evacuation and emergencies. There's a whole gamut of different alerts or just common valley-wide notifications that you can toggle on or shut off depending upon what you want to receive and not receive. So that's through the Pitkin Alert. The client, whenever you find the Pitkin Alert, login information will also be ReachWell.
So ReachWell will be shown there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And what ReachWell does is it's kind of an all or nothing. ReachWell is a tool that's used widely across the United States. A lot of school districts use them. So our visitors coming into the area, maybe they're traveling here from Atlanta, Georgia, and they use ReachWell as part of their school district notification system. All they have to do is when they get to this, they can do it before they even leave to come here, search for Pitkin County, and they can add that into their ReachWell application, and they'll be able to see all of those same alerts that come through Pitkin will also be duplicated on ReachWell. I also, for people that live in the valley, are going to be spending a lot more time here. I personally would recommend you also add Eagle County and Garfield County in, because coming out of the valley, you're going to be hitting Highway 70, and that you'll get a lot of up-to-the-minute information as to what's going on there.
And I'm just going to think out loud here, guys. I'm going to be a troublemaker because I'm a good troublemaker. Maybe through our city council or through the collaborative or whatever, when guests come here, if they check into a hotel, they register an Airbnb, maybe it should be required that they get put on ReachWell or put on the alert, so as many people are visiting here at one time, God forbid there's a fire, are all going to get the same notice. So is that happening already, or something we should make happen? Or?
So that's a conversation. That's a great point to bring up, because we actually have that. We've had that conversation with the different chambers.
Yeah.
Whether it's Basalt Chamber or Aspen Chamber, about how do we notify our visitors that we have these great messaging apps out there. How do we get them on it? And so it kind of, we're still in that process of really trying to finalize when you check into an Airbnb or you check into a hotel room. Is there an information packet there? If you should have these things, you should do these things, you should know these things. And so we're working with our partners in those other organizations to really reach out to our visitors.
So we talked about overall preparedness, and I quickly said I was going to ask you guys this. If you could wave a magic wand, maybe either short-term or long-term, what are a couple things maybe we could just be doing a little better, or a lot better for that matter, and would be on your wish list?
I think I'll start off. I mentioned earlier people having these evacuation kits. Again, when I've gone to these public events, people are very interested in what they are. It's getting across that finish line and actually purchasing one or building one yourself. It's not too terribly expensive. If you go to Ready.gov, there's a lot of different lists of different ideas that you could build your evacuation kit with. It includes for pets and other animals to be able to, things to think about. For our access and functional needs population, maybe disabilities or additional medications that somebody has. So, not only go there, but then take the action to create something. Again, only living in the valley for about the last year and a half, that was one of the first things I did because of the identified risks that we have in the valley with not only wildfire, but other sorts of emergencies that could happen as well. I created my own kit.
You said this is Ready?
Ready.gov.
Ready.gov. Okay, we're going to put a shout out to the technical team here, guys. Put Ready.gov on the screen right now. I know my wife, I don't know when it starts, and whether it's April or May or every year, up until maybe October, it's packed. It's by the back door.
Perfect.
I'm giving my instructions. Okay, I'm not home. You take this one. You take that one. If you don't have enough time, don't take that one. She's always ready.
You hit on something. The next step is to drill or exercise that, because it's one thing while your family of four is sitting around the kitchen table at dinner time and we say, okay, we have to evacuate. It's another thing when your wife is at her job, you're at your job, one of your kids is at work, another kid is at a after-school activity. Now evacuate. Now what are you going to do? And talk through that and understand where the rallying points are, how you're going to communicate with each other. So taking it to that next level and exercising those plans once you have them is a fantastic idea.
And I don't even have that on my evacuation checklist that we're going to go over later. I've got a daughter living here now, some to come to visit. My wife's in town, I'm here. In these fire disasters, and again, God forbid there should be one, how long is this a cell service normally operative? And if it's not, is there a backup function that we should be considering for staying in touch with each other?
So, that's an issue we have. We know that, and that's not just here. That's you look at hurricane zones. Cell phone service is only as great as the tower that they're attached to, and towers have capacity. Towers have batteries. Towers have limitations. We always recommend people they have an FM radio. We have our partners with Aspen Public Radio and our other local media outlets who can transmit over the FM waves or AM waves, who can also announce evacuations in case the cell phone tower does go down. Because if you think we also have some towers that are out in the forest on top of hills. They themselves are susceptible to wildfire, so we might lose a tower early on, and that's going to drop coverage for some area. Hopefully not the entire, not one area, we have multiple towers, but we might lose a good section of a valley. We might lose a certain area. So having that second way to listen to local media, usually over the radio waves, is a great option.
So at a minimum, keep it with your evacuation stuff and maybe have a unit in each car.
Yep, and cars have
and
radios.
then you're going to be able to stay in touch.
Yeah, just know that that's there, because a lot of people, they when you lose cell phones, they kind of freeze up on what to do. Most every car still comes with that FM radio. Know that's a tool.
And we're going to stay at the macro level for a few minutes here, and then we're going to take a break and go to the evacuation stuff. I want to commend you guys, because the statistic is that literally 98% of all fires that get started get put out. And even the ones that start burning, hopefully they get contained quickly. We're going to talk today about the ones that don't get contained quickly. But I know already this year, through your great work and the fire department and all our volunteers, we've had a couple fires started here. I think there was a car got on fire in Old Snowmass. Maybe there was an electric fire at ABC. Just thank you guys for this. But talk a little bit about how these fires are getting spotted and the network we've got set up to find fires and react quickly.
Sure. Our most reliable network for being alerted to wildfire is the public. Okay. We have, and I'll talk about it, there's a Pano AI system that's a partnership between the city, the county, Aspen Fire, Basalt Fire, Holy Cross, Carbondale Fires. There's a different AI-based system.
Which I've heard about, yeah.
Yeah, so I will say we will almost always receive a call from the public first, or multiple calls. That's humans are, that's especially here, people are very aware of fire, which is great. So we do appreciate people reporting. They give us really good information. Here's what I saw, or maybe they happen to have, we see it on ranches. In the springtime, they're doing some sort of controlled burn. Things start to get out of control. They call us before things are out of control. So that human notification is huge. That being said, our AI, Pano AI is a solution we have for the county, and it actually extends all the way down the valley to I-70, and then I believe there's a series of Holy Cross cameras that cover the I-70 corridor as well. So what that does on different mountaintops, there's a camera, and it's constantly viewing 360 degrees from that point, and it's overlapping. So if a camera spots smoke and it has the AI algorithm to look for what smoke looks like, and it's a learning AI, so it gets better every time. It identifies it. The other cameras on that same network that cover that same area look in that same location, and so now we have triangulation to exactly where that smoke is coming from. So we had one last week. It was down above Basalt, and where we got it reported to us, and where actually our responders saw the fire, wasn't where the fire was found. Going back to that Pano AI solution, we pulled the map, we looked at where those sight lines intersected, and that's right where we found the fire, within probably 30 feet. And it was one drainage back from where we were looking on the ground, because what we saw wasn't exactly our vantage point. It was changing as we drove. The cameras really got us to right where we needed to be.
Fascinating stuff.
And so, yeah, it's a growing system. I know there's a lot of other communities in Colorado that are using it. There's a lot in California that are using it. And it's just, it's every time it gets used, it's, like I said, it's learning, so it becomes more adept, and it's just an impressive system.
Okay, so we talked about spotting the fires, putting the fires out. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to turn to this camera. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk specifically about, again, this God forbid scenario. There is a fire started, there is an evacuation required, how we're going to walk our way through this as a community. We'll be right back. Food Bank of the Rockies is the largest hunger relief organization in the Rocky Mountain region. Currently, they are responding to the highest levels of hunger they've seen in 10 years. Through their network of hunger relief partners, including those here in Aspen, and food distribution events, the food bank is committed to providing nutritious and familiar foods to individuals across the Western Slope. Here's an example of their great work.
When I saw the long line of cars, I thought there's such a need in the valley. What it feels like when you don't have food is that you've let your family down. I'm Sherry Lee, I'm 62 years old, and I live in Grand Junction, Colorado. We were homeless, and they fed us. We're better off than we've ever been, thanks to the Food Bank of the Rockies.
Welcome back. Now this is not hyperbole. This could literally be a life and death conversation for the next 15 minutes. I want you to pay very close attention. And again, I keep saying God forbid, but I mean God forbid. God forbid there's a fire, an evacuation is required. How are you going to get out of here? How are you going to keep your family safe? These gentlemen are going to tell us how. So, Parker and Chris, we've seen a fire, like you said. This AI system happened, someone spotted it, someone calls it in. And let's start there. I see a fire. Who do you want me to call?
911.
Call 911.
That's emergency number. I want to go back to, and I want to, as you report it, keep in mind, don't wait for the evacuation notice to come. If you see something that makes you uncomfortable, if you live up a one-way in, one-way out neighborhood, and you see a fire, especially below you or above you or around you, that's your signal before the evacuation. Report it, and then start making your plans to go. You can always go have lunch, come back later, right? Less cars in that area. It's easier for the responders to get in, get out. So we wanted to make sure that people are taking care of themselves as well. But also, yeah, if you see something, say something, but also address it in a way that works for you to remain safe.
And I think that was the message in the beginning, and we're going to mention at the end here. It's the individuals taking care of their own homes, preventing fires, keeping their house from catching on fire, and it's the individual people having their plans and executing those plans. That's the most important level to start with. But we still have you guys there protecting us, and someone's seen a fire, someone's called it in, firemen have been dispatched, right? Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, this is the one that got dangerous. This is the one that somehow got out of control. First of all, is there some kind of a grading system you're looking at? And like you're calling it, this is a 10, 15, 32, 57, or who's making that decision in terms of, is this the bad one?
So every fire is unique. We can. I'll be honest. We really can't plan for fire. We don't know where they're going to start. We don't know the wind. We don't know all these different things that go into it. We know the ground. We know topography. We know the vegetation. That's about it. But that's just a very small piece of the puzzle. So there's no real grading. So when responders go out, we look at the hazards. We look at the access. We look at the evacuation routes. We look at what fuels may be ahead of us, what resources we have, and from there we start coming with a game plan. But with that game plan, it's not just how we're going to attack the fire, it's also trigger points. If this happens, then we're going to do this. So for evacuation, that one in Old Snowmass, we had it burning at the bottom of between Snowmass Creek Road and the lower Mesa Road cut. Right. Our trigger point was for evacuation. If it crossed Mesa Road, that was our trigger point. Luckily, it did cross. I will say it did cross, and we were starting to get that evacuation rolling out. Okay. A lot of things came together. The wind stopped for a second. The wind pushed back on itself. Our helicopter that we had in the area was all of a sudden came up with a bucket full of water. Firefighters were able to address that spot fire, and within 1 minute of that spot, they took away that trigger point. Okay. So we were able to, and we saw that moment of saying, hold on, let's not send the evacuation order, but that still remains our evacuation point if we have a growing fire beyond that. Okay,
so you mentioned something fairly interesting. There was this fire. If it crosses Mesa Road, we're going to go into evacuation mode. You didn't have to get there, but what is evacuation mode? Are we in maybe gradients where we're now going to evacuate area XYZ, and how does that layer out? Because maybe if there's no wind, you're going to evacuate XYZ, but if it's a 30-mile-an-hour wind, we're already thinking Aspen. How does that play out?
So fortunately, in the last year, thanks to the county's 911 board, we were able to purchase a software called Genesis. And it is a zone evacuation software very commonly used out west. in California. If you've worked with the Watch Duty application, which is another application to show wildfires across the western part of the United States, and if you zoomed into some of these fires, especially in the Los Angeles area or in the state of Oregon, they use the Genesis tool, and you can see the different zones within those map layers of what would be evacuated, what's under pre-evacuation, and what's under evacuation notice. We've taken that tool and we've implemented it here in Pitkin County over the last year. Our partners in the neighboring counties around us are also either have implemented it or in the process of implementing it. But there is, it's a layer, it's a geographic boundary that we've pre-identified. But again, as Parker said, the incident is going to drive what portion of that evacuation zone we are going to evacuate if, in fact, that's the decision that's made. You know, as Parker said, the incident commanders, unified command with law enforcement and fire on the scene are making those decisions, setting those trigger points. And as things start to escalate, my role as the emergency manager is I'm opening up the Emergency Operations Center with additional subject matter experts that we can also be in support of those folks out at the scene. If the trigger is tripped and we do need to start an evacuation, I'm working with the 911 center. We're identifying with those incident commanders on scene what areas of that zone or that entire zone or zones are going to be put into either pre-evacuation or evacuation, and that messaging starts to go out. Again, as I mentioned earlier, through Pitkin Alert and pitkinemergency.com, you'll be able to see those zones articulated on a map, and you'll be able to see, am I in or out of those zones.
That's what I want to ask you. So I've got my phone. What is my alert? Am I going to get one of that high-pitched alert noises that I get sometimes?
Well, and that's what I caution people of the Pitkin Alert is the same noise as all the time. You know, whether it's whatever triggers you have turned on for that system will alert. We want to balance the alarm fatigue that somebody might hear alarms happening too often and dismiss it versus really paying attention to it. So when you build your profile within Pitkin Alert, choose those alerts that you only want to receive and not everything.
That's another important message. Not only sign up for Pitkin Alert, but do a management exercise within that of what you want to get. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Again, now if Steve Nemirovsky's phone starts making a loud noise, what am I going to see? I'm in Snowmass Village. I guess there's 5 ways out of there. My college roommate buddy, he's in Aspen. Maybe there's 3 ways out of here. Are you going to say, here's your routing? You've got 10 minutes, you've got 30 minutes. What's on my phone?
So from the alert perspective, and I'll let Parker talk about the routing, but from the alert perspective, it will give, again, common information, north of, south of, east of, west of street names, if there's a common neighborhood or geographic area that's referenced. And then there'll be a hyperlink at the bottom there, and that's going to bring you to that website, and specifically Genesis to show you on the map what areas that we are going to evacuate. Law enforcement is the primary evacuation authority for the area, and that's some of the things that they're thinking of as they're activating that evacuation is what are the evacuation route or routes to be able to get people out. I'm just going to put another plug in.
But I will literally be offered
You will
a
see
suggested route on
So
the
likely
screen.
will not.
You will not
I
see
will
the
not
suggested
see
route. You will
suggested
see the area that is going to be evacuated.
Yep.
Good.
So when it comes to evacuation routes, that's the hard one for us. I will say we have an evacuation every day of Aspen, about 3 p.m. to about 6 p.m.
Well, I want to get into it.
It doesn't work well.
It's tough.
So trying to say go this way but not that way is really challenging. We have, and for a lot of our neighborhoods, for a lot of our valleys, it's one way in, one way out. You look at Red Mountain, Castle Creek, Maroon Creek. Snowmass there's 2 real ones, one back way.
Right.
Starwood. I mean, I can think of all these different areas where it is really challenging. So we try and identify where the issue is, and we tell people to leave. We encourage people when it's not an emergency, know the roads in your neighborhood. Know if there is another way. Be aware of what's around you. So if we do issue the evacuation order, go the way that works for you. And in human nature, under stress, humans go back to what they do regularly. So if they always take the same way in, same way out, under stress, they're going to go back to what they're used to. And so we tell people, know what your other options are versus us trying to tell you something that you might be unfamiliar with.
Okay.
I'm going to put out a couple of other terms that might be helpful. If evacuation is not an option, two terms that we want people to understand is an area of refuge. And what does an area of refuge mean? It's an area that's less likely to burn. Water, as an example, is an area of refuge. If you have a holding pond or somewhere like that and you cannot get out of your area, Understand where some of your areas of refuge are at. Golf courses, places where things are manicured a little bit more. Parking lots, cement. So anything that is less likely to burn could be an area of refuge to buy you additional time. The last term I'll say is shelter in place, and that is hunker down where you're at. And depending upon the situation, there is no silver bullet answer for every scenario, but there, in addition to evacuation, there are two other strategies, albeit they're less optimal, but there are two other strategies that you may have to implement.
Now, I don't want to waste a lot of time on this one. I've asked this before. The people having trouble getting out of town or to break the bottleneck, is there a plan to let people drive onto the airport property? And
No, it won't. So the problem is, when we look at the issue with town, there's no solution. There's no current solutions out there. Our bottleneck is the Cows Creek Bridge. The only other way around the Cows Creek Bridge is on power plant directly below the Cows Creek Bridge.
Right.
That's a challenge that I know City Council is trying to deal with. BOCC and City Council are now talking, and I know there's a lot of conversations around that. I don't know which direction that's going to go, but I think we can all agree, and we all see it every day, that that moving through that section of Aspen is problematic.
so my wife's question is this. She's in town. Something happens. She starts driving out. There's not getting out of here. Now she has to abandon the car, maybe get to one of these open areas. How does she leave the car? And because that could be a big mess. And what does she do about getting out of the car, and what does she do then?
So evacuations aren't always in your car, and that we have to have people recognize that
Right.
on foot may be the most effective way. Don't leave your car blocking the road, because there are people who may need a car to move. We may have to have people with certain disabilities or functional challenges. We may have to go and help get them out. So we encourage people, don't leave your car if you have to abandon your car. But maybe your first thought is start walking towards the golf course.
Okay.
Golf course is that area of refuge.
Or maybe the parking garage. I'm told that's a good place.
Parking garage is an option. And I will say area of refuge, there's a number of them. It's not going to be perfect, because if we have a fire move through an area, I've seen on wildfire before, things are smoky, things are hot, it's not comfortable, but it's safe. So we push like the golf course is right. You cross Cows Creek Bridge, and there you are, Cemetery Lane, and there's the golf course.
Right.
We also have a few bike paths. Please don't drive your car on the bike paths. Bike paths
I
are
was
for
going to ask you
bike.
about that. Don't drive on the bike path.
Don't drive bike paths. Bike paths are for bikes and pedestrians, but maybe that's an option. Maybe grab your bike and ride out the Rio Grande Trail as long as the fire's not on the north side of town. There's the Midland Trail on the south side of town. There's a Marolt Bridge. We have other options to get people out that don't involve cars. But this goes back to my earlier point of, if you feel like it's time to go, don't wait for us to tell you to go. Be ahead of the crowd. Be ahead of that rush of, it's time to start moving towards something safe. And humans have that gut feeling, and we have it for a reason, and we see it a lot. And you interview people who've been in fires. I had a gut feeling that told me time to go, and they did. And you know what? Use that and know when it's time to remove yourself from an area before you have to wait before we have to tell you.
There's a term in public safety we use called situational awareness, and we ask the public to have that same situational awareness. When you see smoke, when you're hearing things, maybe coming out of Gunnison County, something that should raise the hair on the back of your neck to say, I maybe need to start thinking more seriously about my plan, or even activating my plan, because maybe it does take me longer to get out of this valley and things like that. So, the old analogy, if you're waiting for public safety to be knocking on your door or sending out that Pitkin Alert, you're probably running very close to being it's too late.
Well, I told you we're going to start by thanking you guys. Now we're going to end by thanking you guys. Thank you for everything you do. I know you give me great comfort, and I know you said every situation is different. You can't plan for every situation, but I have a sense you guys have planned for just about everything that you can.
Well,
So I'm going to ignore you and go right here.
Fair enough.
I don't want to ignore the sheriff, but I'm going right here. Thanks for joining us today. I think the clear message here is this is on you. They're doing their jobs. They're doing great jobs, but it's now on you. Protect your home. Have your plan. Have your evacuation, everything ready. And think about reaching out to the sheriff's office or the Roaring Fork Collaborative. Get them out to your house. We do this almost every year. They'll help you plan at your house. They'll say, clean this gutter, trim this tree, whatever it takes. Be safe, stay alive, and watch us.